to the Commanders Coalition podcast. I'm your host, Alex Williams.
I'm your host, Jacob Moss.
And today we're going to be doing the set overview for New Capenna, which is releasing on the 29th, which at the date of this recording is tomorrow. This will probably be uploaded next week, Friday. So you'll probably be seeing it, the 6th? 5th.
Math is hard.
I think. I don't know. Whenever it's recorded, or whenever it's posted, you'll see it. So, we're just going to go we have a lot of cards to go over. So, we're going to go pretty quick for each card. We might stop at a couple, but we'll just do our set overview, and then we'll go to the adjournment and the weekly card, and then the adjournment, and then the video will be done. So, okay. All right.
So, let's just get into it. We're going to start off with the white cards.
Yep.
So, I guess I'll talk about the first one. The first one is Rumor Gatherer. It is a 2/1 for 3, 2 white and a generic, and it has Alliance. Whenever another creature enters a battlefield under your control, scry 1. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card.
So card draw on white.
Card draw on white. This is going to be good in token decks.
Yep.
And blink decks, because it's just going to be a way to get more
Draw
card
cards.
value. One thing I do like about this is, unlike a lot of cards, this wouldn't have an effect past the second time. It would just say, scry 1, then draw a card, then nothing. But even after you draw the card, then you still get to keep scrying if you do more.
Oh, that's true. I didn't realize that. So, yeah, so you're going to be able to scry for each creature past your second and more. Other creatures. But,
so it still can give you some value.
So, yeah, but you'll only draw a card once per turn. But that scrying is pretty good. I mean, see more cards.
It's nice because it's just each turn.
Yep. So
it could be good in decks that want to have one creature enter under every turn. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we'll get to the next one. So we'll just go this way.
Yeah.
So the next is Elth Relendant. So it's 3 colors and 2 whites. Planeswalker. It has 5. It starts with 5 loyalty. The first loyalty ability is +1. Choose up to 1 target creature, put a 1 counter on it, and a counter from among Flying, First Strike, Lifelink, or Vigilance. And then the second one is -3. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Shield counters are it's basically like totem armor. If it has a counter on it, if it were to be destroyed, you just remove the counter instead. And then it says put the rest of the bottom of your library in any random order. And then the ultimate is -7, create 5 3/3 white angel creature tokens with flying. So, I mean, I don't think this is going to see a lot of commander play. The first ability is pretty okay because you can give something lifelink, first strike, or flying, or vigilance, and it gets +1/+1 counters. You can also cheat stuff out with the -3 ability. So, I mean, overall, it's okay. 5 mana is pretty...
I mean, it's about the average cost of a Planeswalker. It's not good in Super Friends because it doesn't really do anything in particular. 1/1 counter, lifelink, flying for strike doesn't do a whole lot of impact. Being able to cheat something out is kind of nice, but it's only mana value 3 or less, so you can't really get a whole lot of value from that -3.
Yeah,
that is a pretty steep cost, paying 3 loyalty to get... This is a fifth of your Planeswalker's health, just to cheat something with mana value 3 or less. With a shield counter on it, which I guess is nice, but...
I mean, yeah, I
don't know. It's low impact. It's a Planeswalker, so we thought we'd mention it.
Usually things that are 3 CMC are probably not going to be that huge of a target, unless it's Oko or something. But, shield counter...
It's kind of cool. Doesn't do a whole lot. It would be nice if you could, put a shield counter on something as a +1 to kind of keep something in the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Something that can put a shield counter on something is the next card we have, Boon of Safety, which is a 1 white mana instant that says put a shield counter onto a creature you control and scry 1. So, I guess I like this card because you can, save a creature quickly.
Yep. So you can use it to, shield counter, and then you can't...
It's kind of like regenerate.
Yeah.
It's nice because there's a lot of cards that have the ability to protect your card once, giving it either protection or indestructible for a turn. This one's nice because it gives you a little card selection with scry 1. Nothing too big, but it's can be a nice way to save your commander if you need it. Yeah. Or in a counters matter type strategy.
Yeah, so next is Rabble Rousing. This is one of the Hideaway enchantments. So it's 4 colorless, 1 white. It has Hideaway 5. And then Hideaway is when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library, and then exile 1 face down, and then you can cast it once for free once the thing is met, which is whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Then if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost. So I honestly don't think the Hideaway thing is that like crazy about this card, but being able to just kind of double your tokens, kind of. I mean,
it's like a slow doubling season.
Yeah, you attack with 3 creatures, you get 3 1/1s, and then next turn you can attack with 6 creatures and then get 6 1/1s. So it's almost like a Udvar Hellkite kind of, but for 1/1s.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's that second thing where you can cast the card without paying its mana cost. So I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I think if you play this card, you're playing it for the token doubling effect, not so much the Hideaway 5. Which, I mean, that's good. 5 mana is kind of steep, but I think this card has the ability to provide a high impact that it could be worth it.
Yeah.
If your deck has like an aristocrat sub-theme that it can deal with those tokens right away, getting them even if you don't have an extra combat or anything.
Yeah, and it is enchantment, so.
Yep. So it's harder to remove, so. Let's move on to the next one.
All right. You got next one.
Mage's Attendant is a 3/2 for 3, 2 generic and a white, and has when Mage's Attendant enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 blue wizard creature token with 1, sacrifice this creature, counter target non-creature spell unless controller pays 1. This one's notable because it's a way to counter things in white, which isn't a whole lot common. You know, there's like 1 or 2 other spells that actually can do it. It's nice because if you have a way to like blink this or have a token strategy, it can do quite a bit just by...
Do you think this should have had flash? I feel like it should have had flash.
Be a lot. You mean 4 mana to counter something unless his opponent pays 1.
I mean, it's not. It wouldn't be that much better, but I think it should have had flash. I mean,
it could have.
I don't know.
I think, and even one thing is you don't actually have to even pay the 1 to sacrifice it. It could just be the threat that you could, so your opponent has to respect it and play a little slower.
Plus, if you proliferated it or whatever.
Yeah. Token matter strategies. It's just kind of a fun card that does some good generic things.
So next is Hail Fountain. This is an exciting one. I like this one. So it's 2 colors and a white. It's an artifact. It has white tap, untapped, a tapped creature you control. Create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. And then the second ability is 2 white, tap, untap, 2 tapped creatures you control, draw a card. And then the final ability is 5 white. Yes, 5 white pips. Tap, untap 15 tapped creatures you control. You win the game. So this is a new card that has win the game on it, which is not something... Usually they're okay. It's hard to get to. But
yeah, it is.
I mean, the other 2 abilities I feel like are better almost.
You know, one thing I think about this card is, at least for me, one of like the most powerful effects of this is the ability to pay 1 white to untap it to untap a creature you control.
Yeah, that's true.
This definitely has combo potential because it untaps stuff and makes stuff, and
I mean, think about that one card in the set. I think maybe we'll talk about it. I think we removed it from the list. It's like tap, create a treasure token. You could maybe do something with that if you can untap Halo Fountain somehow. I mean, tapping, create a treasure token, and use that treasure token to pay white and untap it, and then if you could somehow figure out a way to untap Halo Fountain and then maybe have like Goldspan or something out. I don't know.
I mean, this card definitely has combo potential, and it's one thing about it is part of the combo, and then if the combo goes infinite, you can just win the game. You
can win with it,
because you make infinite dudes, and then you just
win the game.
Untap with those infinite dudes. So
it's in spoiler season, this card was pretty hyped. I mean, people were saying it should be banned. I don't think it's that far. I mean,
it's nice because this kind of gives mono white decks a better chance, or it's nice because it's like a combo in mono white, or maybe dual color.
And this could be just a good artifact too in mono white. I mean, just being able to untap 2 creatures you control, draw a card. It's pretty good.
I think you realistically won't really see the win the game used a whole lot. The untapping 1 creature is nice, but I think you'll see a lot of maybe untap 2 creatures to get a lot of synergy.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's like a bunch of mana dorks that can untap. That can tap for 2, and then if you can untap an artifact, and then you're just drawing a card for free, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. You just kind of have to work around it.
So I guess move on to the next card.
Yeah. So the next one we have is Patch Up, which is a 3 mana sorcery. It says return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Not too much to say. It's a reanimation spell in white, which isn't uncommon. Not as common as it is in black.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it has the mana value restriction because, if your deck has a 3 mana value commander, this could just be a way to return it along with other things. And maybe if you have like a few creatures that you want to have for a combo.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be good. One thing is his mana value, not power, so you can't just return a whole bunch of walls.
So, yeah, and it's, up to. So you could just return a 3 mana card.
3 mana card.
Or creature card.
If you're paying 3 mana for a 3 mana card, that's not bad.
Oh, it's not terrible. So next... we gotta...
That's for the next one. It's a legendary creature.
Oh, that's right. Why did we put that on there? Well.
Oh, well.
All right.
Well, moving on to blue.
Next, yeah, so we're on to blue now. So the first card we're talking about is Cut Your Losses. You may have heard of this one if you kept up with spoilers. It's 4 colors, 2 blue for sorcery. It has Casualty 2. Casualty says when you cast a spell, you can sacrifice a creature with the power, right? Yeah, power, whatever the casualty is, or less, or greater. Is it greater? Yeah, it'd be greater, obviously. And then if you do, you copy the spell. So this one says target player mills half their library rounded down. So this, at first glance, you may think 6 mana, sacrifice a 2-power creature, you kill someone, right? But it's 75% of the library, not 100%, because you copy it, you don't.
So if you put this in your deck, you're mostly attempting to mill 2 players for half the deck. So if you have like a Bruvac deck where you can just double your mill.
Just kill 2 players.
Yeah, that definitely has some power and some use.
Yeah, and I mean, this 6 mana target player mills half their library. If you don't casualty it, it's not terrible. I mean, 6 mana, that's half their library that you're getting rid of, right? And if you exile the library or graveyard, then, it's gone. They're gone forever, basically, so.
It's an interesting card. There's better versions of it if you don't use the casualty 2 part, but it also can be a just redundant effect of that mill half your library if you're in like a Xander deck or if you're in a Bruvac deck.
Casualty is... I think Casualty is going to be a very powerful mechanic for cards like this. I mean, 2 players milling half their library is a big deal, especially since if you just have one other card that synergizes with people milling their library,
you can just win the game.
I mean, the one Seer Conrad, that just basically kills 2 players if you casualty it. So, I mean,
yeah. But I think it's interesting. One thing about casualty is in like a spell slingery type deck, like this maybe would want to be in, or maybe a lot of the other casualty cards would want to be in. You don't always have a whole lot of creatures, so it's kind of, you have to have that balance if you want it to work really well.
Yeah. All right. Next one.
Even the Score. Even the Score is a instant for 3 blue pips and an X, and this spell costs 3 blue less to cast if an opponent has drawn 4 more cards this turn. And this says just draw X cards. So,
yeah.
In Commander, people like to draw a lot of cards.
Yep. So, and it's an instant. So if your opponent draws 4 or more cards, you can just pay 5 into X and draw 5 cards.
That's a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
It's nice that it's an instant. There's a lot of cards that do this type of effect where you can just draw X cards.
I mean, this card would be awful if it wasn't an instant.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be awful. It just would probably be cheaper because there's other effects that do...
I don't know. It'd be so bad.
There's other effects that do this, though, and the decks that usually want this are the ones that are going to go combo off, make 1 billion mana, and they want a way to just draw their deck. So there's a few decks that would just want it for that, which is nice, but pretty much you're going to want to hope someone's going to draw 4 more cards, which is quite a few cards to draw. But I guess if someone goes to wheel, and then you go,
that's true.
Okay, I'll wheel, and then I'll also draw 10 cards, you're in a good situation.
Another kind of side thing I want to mention is that I love the names for these cards.
Even the Score, set. Cut Your Losses.
Public Enemy is the next one. But yeah, it's just, they're awesome.
Public Enemy.
Yep. So Public Enemy is a 2-colorless blue enchantment aura. It's an enchant creature, obviously. It says, all creatures attack enchanted creatures controller each combat if able. When an enchanted creature dies, draw a card. I really like this card, the flavor of this card. I really do. Because it's basically like making it so the person that it controls, like if someone enchants one of your creatures, you want it to die, right? So, because everyone's going to be attacking you if it's enchanted with one of your creatures. So you'd be like, we need to get rid of this card, making it the public enemy. So it's like, I don't know. I like it.
It's really cool because your opponent's going to be incentivized to want it to die because they don't want to just get attacked every turn.
And it also draws you a card if it dies, like the person that played it. So
yeah, it's like a removal spell that replaces itself. That kind of is, I don't know. It's good in political decks where you want to kind of convince the table to go elsewhere with their damage.
Yep.
And then it's also good in Super Friends because you can. It's
Make
like
it
another pillow fort effect kind of. Just have to wait for something to die first.
Okay, next card.
An offer you can't refuse. This is a very
like
interesting one.
I like the name of this card.
It's a 1 blue mana instant with counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens.
So Swan Song, basically, but
Swan
instead
Song
of creating a 2/2.
Yeah, it's a very powerful card. That's I don't know if it's very powerful because 2 treasures is a lot of mana to just give your opponent. If I mean, if you only have 1 mana and you're going to stop your opponent from winning the game, I guess it's good. But otherwise, 2 mana, they can do a lot with 2 mana.
Yeah. People were talking about how this card might be a CDH card, but nah, 2 treasures in CDH is too much. I
guess I think it's a counterspell that they could have to like optimize things just a little bit more because I guess if you prevent your opponent from winning guaranteed, them having 2 more treasures is.
But then they just win again next turn.
I guess, but then it at least gives you a chance to do something. I don't know if it's a CDH staple, but I think you could probably put it in a CDH deck.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just rather run the Force of Wills and Force of Negations. And CDH players are going to be playing those. So, like...
But more cheap counterspells is always a good thing, I guess.
Yeah.
If you need them. Not if you're a victim of them.
All right, next. So, Slip Out the Back. It's 1 blue. It's an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. It phases out. So, phases out just means it doesn't exist, basically, until its controller's next turn. So you could use it to protect a creature. You could also use it to get rid of a creature for a turn. Or for a couple turns, I guess. And you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Do you think this is probably meant to protect a creature, right? That's the idea. Yeah.
Obviously, that's kind of what it wants you to do. It's kind of like the one that we were talking earlier about with white, Boon of Safety. Yeah. I don't really know if this one's that good.
Phasing out can be a blessing and a curse, because it could protect a creature, but it also is gone for a turn, right?
Yeah, it's gone for a while. You can't... If you go, oh, it's my turn, oh, you're going to kill my thing, oh, I'll protect it, oh, but I don't have it till my next
yeah, it's basically you got rid of it for a whole turn, a whole turn cycle.
And the 1/1 counter is pretty insignificant, so I don't know if it's that good, but I guess it's a blue card you can have if you really need to protect your commander.
Yeah. Next.
Undercover Operative. You may have Undercover Operative enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with a shield counter on it if you control that creature. So, it's a clone effect for 4 mana. So, there's a lot of clone effects in the game. A good rate is probably 3 or 4 mana for one.
I mean, 3 mana isn't really good for a clone effect.
3 mana is good for a clone effect. This one's nice because it can target anything, and then if you target something that you control, you get a shield counter on this. So, it's kind of a way of saying it's this creature, but it's also better because it is indestructible.
Do you think this is better? Do you think this is... First of all, do you think this is better than clone?
Yes. It's a little harder to cast because it is 2 blue pips instead of 1 blue pip, but...
Do you think this is better than something like, what's that one? What's the other one that's like that? But it's like a permanent instead. Do you think... What's
Clever Impersonator?
Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Maybe.
Do you think it's better than that?
No. I think
Me neither.
Being able to have a permanent is much more important than something temporarily having indestructible. Because I feel like a lot of the effects you have in Commander specifically are going to be Exile, Bounce... or maybe it loses all abilities, but you're not going to have a whole lot of, you do have a lot of, Destroy, but I don't know if that's as big of a thing as a lot of things are in Commander. As, I'd rather have Hexproof than a shield counter.
Maybe a Hexproof counter instead. Yeah, I guess. Alright, so next is Witness Protection. It's 1 blue, it's an enchantment, Aura. It's an enchant creature, obviously. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is green and white and is a green and white citizen creature with base power and toughness 1/1 named Legitimate Business Person.
I think
I like this card.
This
so
card's
much.
been around the internet a lot because people like it is named legitimate business person.
Can't wait to get my hands on a token called legitimate business person.
This is actually really nice because it's like a whole bunch of those other cards that, made something lose abilities. And this is 1 mana.
Yeah, no, this is pretty good. It's basically like Imprisoned on the Moon, but it doesn't become a land, obviously. It's still a creature. But it's 1 blue.
I'd argue that it's better than Imprisoned on the Moon unless you're targeting a commander with it.
That's true, because this card, I mean, this is a good card. This is a good card. It's a common too. This is a good common. I mean, Blaze to Colossus, just put it in witness protection. Make it a legitimate business person. It needs to go to
Yeah. I love the
legitimate.
flavor of that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I like the card. I think it's actually very powerful, so.
Yeah, it's pretty good, especially for a common. All right, next.
Angel of Suffering. Angel of Suffering is a 5/3 for 5 mana, black creature nightmare angel. And it has flying, and it says, if damage would be dealt to you, prevent the damage and mill twice that many cards.
This is pretty good.
This is a very good card because you prevent yourself from taking damage, and decks that want to mill themselves are perfectly fine with milling a lot of cards.
I mean, this is a good card because if you're playing, this wants to be in a mill deck, and I mean, someone attacks you with 5 damage. That's milling 5 cards, and you don't take 5 damage.
And another thing is, mill decks probably have a game plan to make sure they don't just die to milling themselves out. So,
Do you still take commander damage?
Even if you do, do you?
I don't know. Because
I think you prevent the damage, so I don't think you do.
So it's pretty good.
But either way, it's basically it makes it so the mill player can't lose the game until they deal with this creature.
Yeah, I like this card. I do like it.
It's very powerful.
It's pretty good.
It's nice that it has 3 health because that dies to a lot of things. Lightning bolt.
It's not super crazy. It's not super pushed.
Yeah.
But no, I do like this card. It's good.
It's very powerful.
All right, Body Launderer. 2 colorless and 2 black. Like I said, this set is amazing with the names. It's an Ogre Rogue. It's a 3/3, Death Touch. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Body Launderer connives. And connives says, basically, it's what? Draw a card, discard a card.
Put 1 counter on it.
Put 1 counter on it, something like that.
Yep.
When Body Launderer dies, return another target non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, this is interesting. I don't know. It's very interesting because it's like it puts cards into your graveyard because of the conniving, or I guess you'd want to, and then you can return a non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield when this dies.
Yeah.
And it gets +1/+1 counters when it connives, so it'll be bigger. So the idea is that you play this, a bunch of your stuff die. You want some of your non-token stuff to die. It connives, it puts stuff in your graveyard, it gets bigger, and then it itself dies, and you return like a huge creature.
You get to cheat something out. It's kind of a lot of work to go through, but in a sense, it's a card that you can have that can draw you cards.
Yeah, it kind of feeds itself because of the conniving, which is nice.
I think if it just had the return something from your graveyard to play, it wouldn't be as good. But it's kind of nice that it can draw you cards at the same time.
That's true.
Next, Cut of the Prophets. It is a X and 2 black for a sorcery with casualty 3. So you get to sacrifice a creature with 3 or greater power, and then you get to copy it. It says you draw X cards and lose X life. I like this card because it's a way to gain a lot of heart advantage. If you're sacrificing a creature, you can double it up. But otherwise, if you don't do that, you're kind of paying a lot for this effect. But at the same time, this isn't an effect you typically have in black, where you get to pay X, draw X.
No, it's very much a blue effect. And, or at least the drawing cards for X's. I like it. I don't think it's crazy. I think it's pretty good.
No, it comes with the typical black downside of you losing life, but...
Yep. I think I'd still rather run, Stinging Study, probably, and not I don't know. It's
when you pay X to draw X cards plus other mana, it seems like it really builds up. This one with Casualty 3 is nice. So if you pay like 5 mana plus sacrifice a creature, you get to draw 6 cards, which is nice.
Yeah.
Then like, every piece of mana you put into it, if you're copying the spell, is double as good, versus like normal ones where it's just paying 1 and getting a 1 is good. So it's
Casualty 3 definitely, or I should just say Casualty. Casualty definitely could have been Power 3 or Power whatever, not Power 3 or greater, because like that makes it significantly better. Because like let's say you have a 4/4, you can't Casualty it, but obviously you can because that's how it's worded now. But it definitely could have been worded differently. But
a lot of cards would be a lot weaker though, especially like Casualty 3 is having exactly a 3 drop.
Yeah, it'd be a lot. No, it definitely would be a lot worse. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the cards that had Casualty then would have probably had to be better.
Yeah.
Okay, next card we're talking about is Extract the Truth.
Extract the Truth is a 1 colorless and a black sorcery. Choose one. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a creature, enchantment, or planeswalker from it. That player discards that card, and then it has target opponent sacrifices an enchantment. So the reason why we're talking about this card, because that first effect, it's a basic black effect, whatever.
We've seen it before 1,000 times.
The second one is it sacrifices an enchantment. It's enchantment removal.
In black.
That's not something black usually has. So we just wanted to talk about that. There's not much to cover.
It's not much to talk about.
Mainly these enchantment removal part.
It's a good card to keep on your mind if you have a mono black deck that struggles with enchantments.
Yeah.
And also, even if your opponent doesn't have an enchantment, it's not a dead card. You get to make your opponent discard something. And it does have a pretty wide range, being creature, planeswalker, or enchantment.
And you get to choose.
You do get to choose, which is good. So next card, which is one I really like, is Fake Your Own Death, which is a colorless and a black for an instant. It says, until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control, and you create a treasure token.
This is pretty good.
I think so too. There's a whole bunch of effects that are like this that make it so when something dies, it doesn't, or when it dies, bring it back.
And get bigger.
This one I think is better because it does die and then it does come back. Plus, it gets a treasure token, which is very good.
That's that stamped on there makes it really good.
Yeah. If you, at worst, this is 1 mana for that effect, which is about even. But at best, you can pay 2 mana and you get to bank a mana for the next following turns.
Yeah.
So I think this is a very powerful card just in general. Plus, giving +2/+0. I mean, let's talk about Body Launderer. What we talked about before. Gives it more power, so it gets to return something bigger from the graveyard. Plus, it comes back to do some more shenanigans.
Exactly.
So, I think it's a very powerful card.
I agree. And it's common.
It's common, which is nice. So it won't be expensive, ever.
All right. This next one is Illicit Shipment. This is mainly one I wanted to talk about. It's 3 colors and 2 black for a sorcery. Casualty 3. We've discussed Casualty already. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand, and shuffle. So it's a demonic tutor for 5. But it has Casualty 3. So you could technically pay 5 mana, sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater, and then search for 2 cards and put them in your hand. I like this card a lot because it's a tutor that has a chance to just, there's a lot of 2-card combos in the game. So you just going, I'm going to search for those 2.
It's definitely a very powerful tutor that can win you the game if you have enough mana.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It's another tutor that's access to people that don't have as much money to spend on very expensive cards, which is very good.
Yep.
And the fact that it can just tutor for a very powerful combo piece is very nice.
Exactly.
So, not too much to say. It's just a generic tutor that's very powerful.
Yep.
Shakedown Heavy. This card, it's an interesting one to talk about.
I like this card a lot.
It is a 6/4 with Menace for 3. It is a Ogre Warrior and has whenever it attacks, defending player may have you draw a card. If they do, untap it and remove it from combat.
Do you think this card's going to be, insane in Standard?
Card advantage, I don't think, is as important in Standard. But I definitely think, it hits the field and you probably have something to be worried about.
Because it's 3 mana for a 6/4 with Menace. And when it attacks, they can make you draw a card. In Commander, 6 damage isn't that big of a deal, really.
No.
But it has Menace. So, which means they're probably not going to be able to block it. Or at least if they do, it's going to hurt them a lot. Or they'll make you untap it and you'll draw a card. So
I think this could be very interesting in a political deck again, because you get to say, hey, can I attack if you let me draw a card? It could be a way to just draw a card every turn, because to your opponent, having you have 1 more card versus them having 6 less life, unless you're the archenemy, it's probably worth it to give you the card, because it's your opponent having one more card. Then all the other opponents are kind of worried about the same card.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a way to kind of draw some good cards while having a big body on the field.
Yep. All right, next, Tenacious Underdog. 1 colorless and a black, 3/2, human warrior, with Blitz, 2, black, and pay 2 life. Blitz says if you cast a spell for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. So, and then more importantly, it says you may cast Tenacious Underdog from your graveyard using its Blitz ability. This is pretty good, because this will just allow you to keep bringing back this card, right?
Yeah.
And you'll draw cards.
Decks that just want to reanimate something, this is a way to just reanimate something repeatedly if you want to. If you have a card like Ashnod's Altar, you can kind of cut that cost a little bit, and you can draw more cards while you're at it.
Yeah. There's a new commander in this set. Obviously, the commander, we'll do a different video on the commanders, but I think there's a haste tribal commander. Is that black? Do you remember?
That is black.
This might be good in that deck, because it does gain haste. So that might be something to consider in that deck. But I actually really like this card.
I do too. I mean, at worst case, too, it's just 3/2 for 2. That's pretty efficient. I could see this being a very powerful card in Standard, because that's just current, like... Because this is like card advantage in a sense, because you can just keep replaying it. And 2 life for a 3/2, it's worth it.
Although 2 life is like a 10th of your health.
Yeah, but if it hits him for 3,
yes, yeah.
plus draws you a card for free, I like it. I think it's a very interesting card. So, I guess moving on to red cards now.
Yep, red cards.
So, Arcane Bombardment is a 6-mana spell, or 6-mana enchantment with, when you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile is an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard, then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of copies without paying their mana cost.
This is pretty weird.
Yeah. It definitely can get pretty crazy, because each turn, so if you cast a 1-mana cantrip, you get to copy everything that's cast. And, well, I mean, I guess we can just say it. If you have a extra turn spell, basically it goes infinite.
The idea is that, like, every turn you play a spell, instant sorcery, you bank it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, this can get out of hand real quick, because you can just go, like let's say, like you said, with extra turns, imagine you play, like, Time Warp.
And then it gets exiled, then you just win the game from there. So,
yeah.
It is at random, so you can't willingly break it unless you can control your graveyard. Which, if you can control your graveyard at any given point, this could be very powerful.
It could be, yeah.
And,
right.
Just in like a blue-red spellslingery type deck, you could just get an amazing amount of value just from casting a... let's say you cast a counterspell on your opponent's turn. Well, now you get to cast, a whole bunch of other stuff that gets you a whole lot of value.
Yeah.
But it is 6 mana, so it is kind of slow. And I guess if it gets removed, you lose everything that was in it, and you can't really restart it at all. But it's kind of an interesting card, and I could definitely see it taking over a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Moving on. The next red card.
Big Score. Big Score is a 3 colors, 1 red instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards and create 2 treasure tokens. So, Unexpected Windfall was printed in the AFR set. Last year, the year before, December, or something like that. This card is just better than that card. I mean, our Unexpected Windfall is exactly the same, except for it's 2 red and 2 colorless versus 3 colors and 1 red, so this is easier to cast. And there was also a card printed a long time ago in Exile, which was exactly the same as this, but it was a sorcery. So this is better than both. But it's very similar, right? These effects are pretty good because you're getting rid of 2 cards because you discard a card and you play Big Score. You draw 2 and you create 2 treasure tokens. So it's like you're just seeing more cards. It's kind of like a looting effect, sort of. So I like it.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, let's see if a Galazeth Prismari deck. Yeah. You pay 4, you get 2 mana rocks that you can just keep repeatedly tapping, plus you get to draw a card and discard a card.
Exactly. So
I don't think this is going to be like a staple or anything, but I could definitely see this being like in some decks and just providing a huge amount of value in those decks.
I mean, if you have Unexpected Windfall in a deck and you only plan to have one of those effects in, you just replace it with this because it's just better. If you're playing treasure token decks, usually you'll have all 3, probably, because it's a good effect. So
anyway, just kind of a stable, good effect. Speaking of treasures, Glittering Stockpile is a 3 mana artifact. treasure with tap add red, put a stash counter on it, and then tap sacrifice it to add X mana of any one color where X is the number of stash counters on a glittering stockpile.
So slowly over this format, 3 mana rocks have kind of gotten pushed to the side, right? They're not usually that great in Commander anymore. I'd still say, obviously, that 2 mana rocks are better than this card, but this is an interesting take on a 3 mana rock.
It is nice because there are a lot of mana rocks that tap to put a counter on it to do something, but those are usually like 4 mana or up and then they start getting like bigger and bigger effects.
Yeah.
This one's nice because you can tap it for mana and to put a counter on it, so you do both, and then eventually you can just sacrifice it to add X mana or X number of counters on it. So like, let's say you play this on turn 3. On turn 6, you can sacrifice it for, just 3 more mana to have 9 mana on turn 6.
Or just let it sit through the whole game. I mean, imagine you play this, like you said, on turn 3, and you just wait until like the end, and then, I need like 7 or 8 mana that I just want right now. So
yeah. It's nice because it's mana rock, so people don't really want to target it because it itself doesn't have a huge effect. But, it's also in red, so I think it's a very good card.
I like it too.
I could see this card being a couple bucks, even though it's an uncommon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll hit over $1.
I could see it maybe getting there eventually.
It's just like, it's in mono red. I mean, mono red decks are going to love this card.
Yeah,
So.
I could see a lot of decks just saying, okay, I'll just put that in right now. It's also an artifact, so artifact synergies, you can, if you have a Corvold deck, being able to just sacrifice an artifact you play to draw a card and add some mana, that's pretty good. It's
interesting to note, though, that this is a treasure, but you cannot sacrifice this for a
mana of any color.
Mana of any color. It's not like, not that you'd want to, but it's not a treasure token.
Yeah.
So, next, Devilish Valet. It's 2 colors and a red. Devil Warrior, 1/3. Trample and haste. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. Okay. I like this card a lot. I really do. Because imagine you're playing Gruul. You play this card, and you play Avenger of Zendikar.
Oh, someone's dead.
You're going to kill someone. Because it does have haste, too.
It has trample
and trample. Haste. I mean, okay, let's say you have 7 lands for Zendikar. Or,
I'm going to try that again?
Yeah.
English is hard.
English is hard. Imagine you play Avenger of Zendikar, and you have 7 lands, and you have this out. Avenger of Zendikar is going to hit the battlefield. It's going to double it to 2. And then you're going to have 7 tokens enter, and it's going to double it 7 times. So, you're going to kill someone real fast with that.
It's going to do like 128 damage.
You're going to kill someone. It says trample and haste, so you're not... I like this card a lot.
And I mean, even if you just like play a card that makes 3 tokens, it goes from 1 power to 2 power to 4 power to 8 power.
Like,
and that's like not a huge impact.
Or Hornet Queen, like
you play Hornet Queen, and this can get to a point where it can kill a player.
This card,
easily.
I think it's I don't know. I haven't checked the price on this card. I'm gonna guess it's gonna sit around $5 because that seems like the kind of price that it would be for this card.
It's only a rare.
It's only rare. I do think though that this card could creep in price over time.
I think this card could be. I feel like this is a card that's on the table, and people don't really know. It's like, is that gonna kill me next turn? Should I kill that now?
I really like this card. Anyway, next.
Professional Facebreaker. This is one of my favorite cards from the set. It's 3 mana for a 2/3 with Menace. With whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Then sacrifice treasure token to exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So this is obviously just a very powerful card to generate card advantage in treasure token decks.
Yeah.
Plus, like, let's say you're in a... What was the guy? Prosper deck, where you get a treasure token for every time you cast something from Exile. So you get to get a treasure, exile cards. Basically, it's just you get to play top card library for free.
Yeah. It is kind of unfortunate that it says whenever one or more creatures you control deal damage to a player, create a treasure token, which means
you only can get one treasure per turn, unless you have something with double strike or first strike, because you get the first strike trigger and then the normal strike trigger.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
it's also only 3 mana, so it's very easy.
This is gonna be underrated. I feel like.
I think this could be a card that's just you just get it out and it just provides a lot of value over the course of the game. So
Next,
moving on.
Sticky Fingers.
2 more red cards, which this is actually a really fun card. Sticky Fingers. It's a 1-mana enchantment or enchant creature. Enchanted creature has Menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. And whenever enchanted creature dies, draw a card. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
This is a 1-mana enchantment, plus it gives your thing Menace. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. If it just said that, I think it could be playable just because making the treasure token.
Yeah.
Because treasure tokens have gotten a huge buff. But also, it says when it dies, draw a card. So...
This is 1 red, by the way.
It's 1 mana, and this can... I don't think this is going to be a card that can, like, sway the tide of a game. But I think it definitely...
So generate a lot of value over time.
It does have to be combat damage, but I think it still definitely is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Very, very fun, too. Because, I mean, let's say you have a commander that's unblockable, or something that even just has flying. Well, every turn you're getting treasure, plus it has Menace now. It also has Menace. It gives it evasion.
Yeah, exactly. It gives it everything.
So, I think it's a very fun card.
Next, Structural Assault. 3 colors and 2 red for a sorcery. Destroy all artifacts, then Structural Assault deals damage to each creature equal to the number of artifacts that were put into the graveyards from the battlefield this turn. So, this kind of goes well with the set, since it's treasure token themed.
Yeah. One thing is, if your opponent has a bunch of treasure tokens, they can just sacrifice it in response.
Yeah, but don't forget, it says equal to the number of artifacts that were put into the graveyards from the battlefield this turn.
Oh, this turn, not just by this card.
So if they have treasure tokens and you destroy all of them, it doesn't matter if they sacrifice them. You still get stuff off that.
Oh, so like another thing you could do is you could just choose to sacrifice 10 treasure tokens, then deal 10 damage to everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's a very fun card. It's 5-mana nuke that can do a lot in red, which is nice. So I think it...
Story Spotlight, too. Not that that matters, but it is. Yeah.
It's definitely a fun card. I guess we can move on to green.
Yep, green. Now, if you have been paying attention to anything Magic related, you've heard of this card. This next card we're going to talk about.
Bootlegger's Stash, 6-mana, artifact. Lands you control have tap, create a treasure token.
Oh.
That's really good.
That is really good.
One thing about this card that I think, at least from what I've heard, I don't know, I think this card's very powerful. I think it probably is overrated a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because...
It's 6.
It's 6 mana, and let's be honest. If you're building a deck, do you really want to spend 6 mana to just be able to bank mana for a turn? Unless... Yeah. But if you are in a deck that synergizes either with treasures
or
sacrificing stuff, or maybe if you have a bunch of stuff that just untaps things so you can maybe use banked mana a bit more easily.
So, okay, first of all, I think you might want to run, like, if you're going to run a card like this, in a normal deck, I'd rather run, like, Zendikar Resurgent. Like, it's like 1 more mana, right? 7. Yeah. So, it's... But here's the thing. If you pair this with a Seaboard Muse or a Wilderness Reclamation, you're going to win the game unless someone stops you real quick, because that is an insane combo.
But there's other cards that you can do that with. Seedborn Muse, if you have... So, I mean, I think it's a very powerful card, but I think unless you intend to break it, it's not a card that can just go in any deck.
No. And in Corval decks, especially...
Oh, Corval decks, this is just insane.
It turns all your lands into tap.
Draw card.
Draw card.
Or no, just draw card for free. You don't even have to tap it, because you still get the mana.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
Tap, add a mana, draw card.
Yeah, that's
pretty busted. It's a very powerful card, but I think you have to try and break it if you want it to be really, really good.
Next, Evolving Door. 2 colors and a green artifact. 1 tap, sacrifice creature. Count the colors of the sacrificed creature, then search your library for a creature card that's exactly that many colors plus 1. Exile that card and shuffle. You may cast the exiled card, activate only as a sorcery. So let's say you have Let's just say you have a 1/1 green-white citizen creature token, since there's a lot of those in this set. You sacrifice it, you tap 1, tap this, sacrifice it, count the colors, has 2, search your library for a creature with 3 colors in it, because it's 2 plus 1, exile that card, and shuffle. You may cast the exiled card. Not until end of turn, by the way. It's forever, as long as this card's still on the battlefield. So you can play it next turn, and the turn after, and the turn after. So... I like this card because it just, like, it's not like a birthing pod, right? It's like, I'm gonna search for some. I mean, basically, it's like a tutor for creatures, right?
Yeah, you have to sacrifice something, but if a deck wants to sacrifice something, and 1 mana is not a huge cost at that point.
And something to note though is that you can sacrifice monocolored tokens, and search for a dual color token, or just sacrifice. I guess if you have like a colors creature, you can sacrifice a colors creature and search for a one color.
One thing is though, you can never sacrifice your command. Well, I guess you could sacrifice your commander if your commander's like Tazri. But
yeah, and also it's exactly that many colors +1, so you can't search for like less.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting card. I don't think it's broken, but it's a very fun card, and I think the right deck could probably really use this well.
Yeah, it's like a budget birthing pot almost.
Kind of.
Okay. So next card,
Gala Greeters, 2 mana. For a 1/1 with Alliance, whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Put a 1/1 counter on it, create a tapped treasure token, you gain 2 life.
This is, by the way, the buy box promo for this. Comes in every booster box. A borderless one comes in every booster box. Just wanted to throw that out there.
It's an interesting card. It's kind of low impact. I mean, I guess really what you want is to make the treasure token, but it enters tapped. It's kind of a cool card. Doesn't really have a huge effect, and
no,
you can't really just go off with it. And the effect is kind of slow.
Another thing I want to mention with the whole buy box promo thing is not every country, a lot of different countries, when you buy a box in there, it has a different art of this card. So there's actually, if you look like on like a card site, it'll have like 15 different arts, borderless arts.
Gotta collect them all.
Just wanted to mention that, but we can move on to the next one. Prize Fight. It's 1 colorless and a green. Instant. Target creature you control. Fight target creature you don't control. Create a treasure token. I like this card. Fighting has always been something I've liked in the game since I started. Prey Upon. Prey Upon's a sorcery. Yes, Prey Upon is a sorcery. So there's also another card called Pounce, which is the same thing as this, but it doesn't create a treasure token, so it's just better. But yeah, no, I this is amazing. I mean,
yeah, I think any deck that wants to use fighting at all, or
just it's a kill spell. I mean,
it's a kill spell in green that also gives you a treasure token.
Yeah, I like this card.
I like it a lot too.
Next,
Titan of Industry. It's a mythic. It's a 7/7 for 7, 3 green pips. With reach, trample, and it has when it enters the battlefield, choose 2. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Target player gains 5 life. Create a 4/4 Rhino Warrior creature token, or put a shield counter on a creature you control. So, it's a 7 mana card that has quite a few effects. One thing I like about this card is, let's say you have an elemental tribal deck. This kind of provides a way to close out a game because you can create 4/4s.
I mean, it has the whole package for even just an elemental deck. I mean, you can
blow something
removal
up
for artifact enchantments, gain life, I guess, create 4/4s, or protect some stuff.
I like it.
Plus, it's good in blink decks, so there's that too.
Yep. 7 mana card. I'd say it's probably only worth running in elemental decks and blink decks.
Yeah, I agree. Next, Topiary Stomper. 1 colorless and 2 green. It's the only dinosaur in the set, I believe. It's a plant dinosaur. 4/4, vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. And it says that it can't attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands. So, I mean,
it's a creature that can ramp you. In blink decks, I could see this having use. It's also a 4/4 for 3 with vigilance.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'd rather run a Wood Elves in a blink deck, but
probably
because it searches for a forest. And I believe it comes in the battlefield untapped, I think.
I don't know. It's an interesting card. Thought we should talk about it.
Yep. Next. Last green card.
Vivian of the Hunt is
Vivian
on the Hunt. 6 mana for a 4 loyalty planeswalker with +2. You may sacrifice a creature. If you do, search your library for a card with mana value, creature card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed creature's mana cost. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So +2, that's
really good for a +1 or +2.
It is +2. You get to turn something into something better. It's pretty good. You can't repeat the effect very easily though, and then, okay, +1, mill 5 cards, put any number of creature cards milled this way into your hand, And then
That's
minus
a
one.
as well.
-1, create a 4/4 Rhino Warrior creature token. This is a planeswalker that, like...
It's pretty good.
I think it can provide a lot of value. I mean, you just play it, and then you make a 4/4 and make another 4/4, and then you got 8 power on the field for 6 mana, plus you still have a planeswalker. That's just good. But one thing about it is, like, even after it's been on the field for a really long time, and it hasn't gotten attacked, it's not close to an ultimate that just wins them the game or anything. Yeah. So it's an interesting card. I don't think it's that broken.
Next, you want to talk about this card?
Yeah, Black Market Tycoon is a 2/2 for a red and a green. With the beginning of your upkeep, Black Market Tycoon deals with 2 damage to you for each treasure you control and tap, create a treasure token. It's a card that just can make a treasure token. With all the treasure token synergies, it's kind of a generic fun card.
It's like a mana dork, but it punishes you for having treasures at the beginning of your upkeep.
Yeah. I'm going to skip these for now until we...
To the end?
Well, yeah, because there's other like multicolor cards that I think we should talk about before we move on to the
We're skipping the charms and the ascendancies until last.
Yeah, we're talking about the rest of the...
Okay,
cool.
Endless Detour. I like this card a lot. Green, white, 1 green, white, blue. Instant. The owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or card in a graveyard puts it at the top or bottom of their library. So this is pretty good because it's like a counter spell, a removal spell, and graveyard hate, kind of, all in one. They get to choose if it's on the top or bottom, I believe. So, you could also use it on your own stuff, though. So if you had, let's say you had even a demonic tutor in your graveyard, I'm going to put it on top of my library, and then maybe I can draw it this turn or draw it next turn at the beginning of my turn, and then tutor for a card in my deck. I mean, that's pretty good. So, I like this card a lot.
One thing I like about this is you can target your own stuff, which you said. You can target your own spells specifically. So let's say you have an Apex Devastator. You get the cast trigger of 4 Cascades.
I didn't even think about that.
And then
that never crossed my mind.
Then you can... After all the Cascades resolve, because you want to get it back, you can put it back on top, and you can draw it. And then you can do it again, and just get more Cascade value.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a really good idea.
It's fun. Fun for everyone, except for your opponents who are waiting for you to finish cascading.
Right. Next, I think we only put the 1 on there, right?
Yeah, that's another cycle. Let's move on to that last.
Okay.
So one of my favorite cards from the set is Corpse Explosion. Very fun name very fun card. It has, as an additional cost to cast the spell, exile a creature card from your graveyard. It's a sorcery for a generic, a green... Generic? I'm all over the place. A generic, a black, and a red. And it has additional cost to cast the spell, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Corpse Explosion deals damage equal to the exiled card's power to each creature and each planeswalker. What I like about this is a 3-mana nuke.
I like the flavor behind this card.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to scatter her ashes.
That's
the flavor text. I really like this card because it's a 3-mana nuke.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not as good as like Toxic Deluge because, you can't just choose to pay life.
Yeah.
You have to exile a creature card from your graveyard. But there are graveyard decks that just can nuke the field for 3 mana, which is very useful. I like it. I guess we can move on. Exotic Pets. This is a fun one.
So, Exotic Pets is a... Exotic Pets is a 1 colorless, 2... I'm messing up too. Oh my gosh. 1 colorless, 1 white, 1 blue. Instant. Create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens with this creature can't be blocked. Then for each kind of counter among creatures you control, put a counter of that kind on either of those tokens. So you can it basically copies the tokens that you have on your stuff. You Voltron Fish.
I think this is a very fun card. I don't think it's very busted, but I definitely think it's pretty fun.
I kind of wish it was permanent, or creature or planeswalker, because I think it'd be kind of funny to have a fish with loyalty counters on it. Yeah,
it wouldn't really matter. So that's kind of cool. Let's move on.
Meeting of the Five.
Meeting of the Five. This is one you want to talk about, but I guess I can read it. It is 3 colorless in Wooburg. And it's a sorcery. It says, exile the top 10 cards of your library. You may cast spells with exactly 3 colors from among them this turn. Add, and then Wooburg. Spend this mana only to cast spells with exactly 3 colors.
This isn't a very good card. I was hoping, it was spoiled that there was going to be a card that was, going to add double Wooburg, and there was going to be a really hefty, large spell that has Wooburg in its cost. I was hoping this is going to be way better. The only deck I would probably ever run this in is a Ramos deck.
And even then, it's exactly 3, which I guess...
Well, you're going to be running a lot of 3-color cards in that deck, though.
I guess. I just don't like the exactly 3 part.
And there's some triple color synergies in this set.
Yeah.
So...
But it's weird to have a triple color themed Wooburg deck.
Yeah,
It's just kind of weird.
Kind of weird, yeah. I agree.
Okay, well, moving on to a multicolored Planeswalker.
Obnixus, the Adversary. He's a 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 red. Starts with 3 loyalty. Casualty X. The copy isn't legendary in the starting and has starting loyalty X. So you can pay, or you can sacrifice a 4 power creature and create 4 copies of Obnixus.
No, you create 1 with starting loyalty X.
Oh, that's right.
You don't just get...
And that,
oh, no, that
I
would
gotta
be...
imagine. So you copy it once, and then it has starting loyalty, whatever the creature you sacrificed is. So it has +1. Each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. -2. Create a 1/1 devil creature token with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Classic demon or classic devil. -7. Target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. This card is haunting Standard right now. People are complaining about it in Standard. Because what they do is they drop at turn 3 and sacrifice a 2-power creature, and they have 2 Obnixuses out.
Yeah, it's 2 Planeswalkers. That's kind of a lot to get through.
And they have 4 of them in their deck, and they just keep doing it once they draw more. It's yeah.
In Commander, one thing that's cool about this is I guess it's a Planeswalker that you can instantly ult if you have a 7 mana or 7 power creature you want to sacrifice.
That's true, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So that's kind of one interesting thing. The -2 isn't very impactful, and the +1 really isn't either because they can just take 2 life. I don't know. I think it's kind of an interesting card. I don't think it's that broken in Commander, at least.
People are comparing it to the Oko
in Standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just you play it and then you make a devil you can block with, and then you make them lose some life, and even if they kill one of the Obnixuses, there's still another one.
Exactly. I don't know. Not crazy in Commander, but Standard is definitely
can be obnoxious. It's 3 mana. 3 mana Planeswalkers have the potential to be very obnoxious.
It's taking over Standard, which leads us to our next card, Hostile Takeover.
Up to 1 target creature. So it's 2 mana and then Grixis. And it has up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. Up to 1 other target creature has base power and toughness 4/4 until end of turn. Then it deals 3 damage to each creature. It's a 5 mana nuke that deals 3 damage to each thing, and you get to make sure something dies, and you get to make sure something of yours lives.
If this was like Naya colors, I could say this would be pretty good in like a dinosaur deck because you activating your stuff live.
But I don't know. I think there's just better effects or better cards in Grixis for this effect. I mean, I can.
By the way, we should preface this. All the cards we're talking about are just cards we thought
would be
worth talking about and are interesting for Commander and or interesting for Commander, but then we're gonna give our notes on other Standard for Obnixus. Yeah. So yeah,
I don't know. I think it was worth talking about, but it's low impact and it's just another nuke.
Yeah,
we have a lot of nukes in the game.
Next, this is one you want to talk about.
This is one I really like. Stimulus Package. It's a 2 mana, a red and a green, for an enchantment with, when it enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. With a sacrifice treasure, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token.
So you can turn those treasures into people.
Yeah, so this is like a win con for a treasure deck, because you can just say, okay, I'll just make 35 dudes. I win. True. One thing I would like to say about this, though, is if you're a treasure-themed deck and you also are a token-themed deck, you know what I mean? It's kind of a weird disconnect.
Yeah.
But I guess if you have the one haste commander, Ognis, that's both treasure and hasty tribal, I guess it's kind of a way to buff your creatures and just swing for a lot of damage.
It'd also be kind of good in that one Ginny Fae commander that creates 3 1s and 2 2s instead of creating the token. So you can kind of do some shenanigans with creating dogs and cats instead. So I guess there's that too, but
interesting. I feel like that kind of clashes with the treasure tokens, doesn't it?
Yeah, people run treasure tokens in that deck, though, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, next.
All right, Soul of Emancipation. 4 colors, green, white, blue. Creature avatar, 5/7. When Soul of Emancipation enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 other target non-land permanents. For each of those permanents, its controller creates a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. So it's
Terrestodon,
but it's less mana, but it creates 3/3s of flying.
I think Terrestodon's better.
I think so too. The flying matters a lot.
Flying is important in Commander. I mean, either your opponent, because I mean, let's say you blow up, 3 of the same thing from your opponent, and then they're mad at you, so they swing at you for 9. Well, 9 flying is a lot. And let's say you are a flying deck. Do you really want to give your opponents blockers? I wouldn't want to give my opponents blockers. So, yeah.
I
also think Terrestodon can blow up lands, can it? This one can't.
Yes, it can. Yep.
Yeah, this one
Terrestodon can blow up lands. I'm pretty sure.
I know it's a card worth talking about, but I definitely don't think it's as good as some other cards are.
Yeah.
Void Rend. This is one you want to talk about.
This is definitely Void Rend. This card is definitely probably one of the best removal spells we've had in a while. It's 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, instant. Spell can't be countered. Destroy target non-land permanent. Can destroy anything. It's 3 mana. Can't be countered. That's a pretty good kill spell. It's like Anguished Unmaking almost. Just instead of a colorless, it's a blue.
The fact that it can't be countered is very, very powerful.
Yeah. Was this the only colorless card we wanted to talk about?
Yep, this is the only artifact.
So there's only one colorless card we want to talk about.
Artifact. Lands are colorless.
Okay. Artifact. Okay, in that case then, I guess Bootlegger Stash would be in here too, because it's an artifact. And Glittering Stockpile. So I mean, like, okay, colorless artifact. There you go.
Yep. Colorless non-land cards. Luxior, Guida's Gift. It is a 1-mana legendary artifact equipment with equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. Loyalty abilities can still be activated. And equip planeswalker 1 and equip 3.
So this is one of the first cards that I think there might be one more that can attach to planeswalkers equipment. It's pretty good. It goes infinite with Devoted Druid. So
that happens a lot. It's kind of hard for them to make a card that doesn't go infinite with Devoted Druid.
That's true.
Right? One thing about this card is, I think if you put it in a Planeswalker deck, you don't really intend to swing with it.
No.
You intend to just activate the loyal, make it so it can't be swung at.
I did see on Twitter the other day this Luxior with Dakon, Backblade, and then the Blackblade Reforged card. And he has loyalty equal to the number of lands you have. And then the Backblade gives it +1/+1 for each land you control. And then obviously you equip this first because it has to be a creature. So you equip that and it gets +1/+1 for each counter. So let's say you have 5 lands and then you play him. He gets 5 loyalty counters. You play this. He's a 5/5, and then you play the other equipment that becomes a 10/10. And I just think that's funny because it's just like double sword planeswalker.
He's got a lot to hold on to. I think one downside of this card in like Super Friends decks is they often have a lot of Wrath type effects in it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's that powerful because it could clash with that. So I don't know.
It's not really that great in Planeswalker decks unless you're playing a Planeswalker deck that synergizes with making them creatures. I don't know.
Just kind of odd.
So next, we're going to talk about lands, but this kind of also sinks into cycles too.
Let's just return to our first cycles that we were talking about.
So we're back to multicolored cards, but we're going to talk about the cycles for the multicolored cards. So we're not going to spend too much time on these because we have mentioned these before in other videos.
Yeah, a couple of them we have. Okay, so the first one is the Ascendancy. So Broker's Ascendancy is a green, white, blue enchantment with, at the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. I think it's slow. I don't like doing stuff on my end step.
No. It's okay in Planeswalker. It's not great. I mean, yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of enchantments that that you need to set up and then to do something. So like, it kind of almost feels like a waste of a card slot.
Yeah.
Okay, Karabetti Ascendancy. You want to read it?
Cabaretti.
It's
a 1 red, 1 green, 1 white. It's Naya, or I guess whatever. Cabaretti. It gets its Cabaretti. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of the library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, you may reveal it, put it in your hand. If you don't put the card into your hand, you may put it on the bottom of your library. So it's kind of like scrying, but it's putting it in your hand if it's a creature or planeswalker.
It's nice because that can kind of draw you 2 cards. It also gives you a chance to put something on the bottom if you don't want it.
Yep.
I'd say it's probably better than Broker's. Okay. Maestro's Ascendancy. 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. Enchantment. At beginning 1 string each of your turns, you may cast an instant sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other costs. If a spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile instead. So it kind of like gives something flashback. Flashback, but you have to sacrifice a creature in addition to that, so the cost. It's nice because unlike the other ones, it actually can do something the moment you play it out.
Yeah.
Get something right back. I guess read the next one.
Riveteer's Ascendancy. It's a black, red, green enchantment. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Do this only once each turn. It's pretty good.
Yeah, only once each turn is kind of annoying. I think the way that's worded means you don't have to do it the first time, which is interesting. Lesser mana value. It's an interesting idea, but I don't think it's... I think Maestros is probably better.
Yeah, so far I think that's the best one out of 5.
Okay, last one. Obscura Ascendancy. 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1 plus the number of soul counters on it, put a soul counter on it, then create a 2/2 white creature token with flying. As long as there are 5 or more soul counters on Obscura Ascendancy, spirits you control get +3/+3. It's slow. Spirit Tribal. I don't know. This card feels like it would be really hard to make work with the rest of your deck. Unless you have like a Spirit Tribal deck that has increasing mana cost synergy.
Yeah, it's not great.
I'd say the best one's Maestro's Ascendancy. Being able to cast stuff from your graveyard is pretty good.
Yep.
Okay.
So next to the charms.
Riveteer's Charm. This one, we haven't talked about this one yet. So.
I mean, didn't we talk about all the charms already?
There are only 3 out. And all 5 weren't out yet. We talked about these 3. Okay, Riveteer's Charm. 1 black, 1 red, 1 green for an instant with choose 1. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. And then you can exile the top 3 cards of the library until your next end step. You may play those cards. And then exile target player's graveyard. I think this one's pretty decent. It's removal, card advantage, or card selection, and then you get or graveyard hate. I
believe that exile target player's graveyard has been on like 4 other charms in the past.
It's a very common theme. Maestro's Charm. We read this one before, but it is a 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. For a instant with choose 1, look at the top 5 cards of the library, put one of those cards into your hand and the rest in your graveyard. Each opponent loses 3 and you gain 3 life, and then Maestro's Charm deals 5 damage to target creature, planeswalker. Removal, I guess. Lose 3 life, not really important. 5 cards in your library, put 1 into your hand and the rest in your graveyard.
Yeah.
Pretty low impact. You can read the next one.
Next is Obscura Charm. We talked about this one already too. 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black. Instant, choose 1. Return target multicolored permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Counter target instant or sorcery spell, or destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. I mean, it's removal.
I'd argue this one's the best of the 3 we read so far.
Yeah, counterspell. It's a removal or a counterspell, which is usually pretty good.
Or recursion.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Okay, Broker's Charm. 1 green, 1 white, 1 blue. Choose 1. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker and opponent controls. Destroy target enchantment or draw 2 cards. This one has some pretty good modes. You know, it's creature removal, planeswalker removal, or enchantment removal. It's pretty slow.
Or planeswalker removal.
Yeah. Or card advantage, but it's pretty inefficient card advantage.
Yeah.
You're paying 3 for +1 card. 3 of a very specific color set. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty low impact. I think Obscura is still better. And then...
Last one is Cabaret Charm. 1 red, 1 green, 1 white. Instant, choose 1. Cabaret Charm deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control. Target creature or planeswalker. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample. Or create 2 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens.
I'd like the card if you could choose a player.
Yeah, that's true.
Otherwise, I'd still say Obscura is the best.
I think Obscura is the best charm out of these 5, at least. So, the next cycle is, I don't know, what are these called?
I don't know. But what they can do is there's a set of 5, and they're each of the Crime Lord's color.
2 colors,
color
and then,
identity.
And then the...
Yep, they're all 5 mana, and they have an activated ability that you can activate from your hand. 2 colorless, exile it from your hand, and then target land gains, tap,
add 1 color
add one of the colors as long as this remains exiled, and you can cast it from exile if you activate the ability, and then it might have an ability when it enters the battlefield or attacks.
Yeah.
They're not that good. I guess they're a good way to, like, color fix.
They're commons, too, so...
It's a decent way to color fix in budget decks, but I don't know, it's not that good.
Yeah.
They're worth mentioning, though, because you can cast them from exile if you exile it from your hand,
yeah.
which is not bad.
So, the last final, last final cycles and last final cards we're going to be talking about are the lands. So, and they're all cycles. There is not, I don't think there's a single land in this set that's not a part of a cycle.
Yep.
And they're pretty good land cycles, I'd say.
Okay, so one that I'm sure everyone's heard of is Jetmir's Garden. Well, is the Triumph cycle.
The rest of the Triumphs.
Our example here is Jetmir's Garden. It has tap, add... There's a land, mountain, forest, plains, has tap, add red, green, or white. Enters the battlefield tapped and is cycling for 3. This completes the Triumph cycle that we had from Ikoria.
Super excited. I love the Triumphs. My favorite cycle in the game.
Yep, there's a lot of hype around these. I mean, there's not too much to say other than they're just pretty good. Yeah. They allow for really good color fixing in combination with fetch lands.
We've went over it a million bajillion times talking about how good our Triumphs and dual lands are. But next is they're kind of like Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds, a little bit different. There's 5 of them, 1 for each crime family in the set. And it says when it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it, and when you do, search your library for a basic and then one of the 3 colors that color or the color identity is, and then you gain a life. So it's similar to Terramorphic Expanse, but you can only search for one of the 3 colors. I mean, these, I would say they're pretty good. I mean,
they're pretty good, especially, if they're good ways to, like, budget fix your mana. It's more copies of Terramorphic Expanse is always good.
Yep. And it is basic. If it wasn't basic,
they'd be really powerful.
Oh my god, they'd be broken.
I'd say Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds are still better because they get to choose when they want to go.
And you can choose any color.
Yeah. And you also don't have to choose to sacrifice it. Because, like, let's say you have a World Tree in play.
You might want to tap it for mana.
Yeah. So. You don't want to have a tapped land that turn if you don't have to. Okay.
The final cycle is...
I don't really know what these are cycles called, but they enter the battlefield tap. They tap for 1 of 2 colors, and there's 1 for each color pair, right? Or is there
It's just the allies.
Oh, just the allies this cycle. Okay. And then they have 2, and then 1 of each color, tap, or 1 of the 2 colors to tap for, to sacrifice the land to draw a card. Low impact. They're kind of interesting. We've had better versions of it.
Bonner's Enclave and War Room are usually pretty better. We've talked about those before.
The enter taps, I don't know, worth talking about just because that's the only lands we have in the set. But
yeah, so that's about it, right? So that's about it for the set overview. We just want to talk about some of the cards that we found pretty interesting in the set. There might be more, and you guys can tell us about it. But we're gonna move on to the weekly card, and this week's weekly card is
Seething Anger. It's a 1 red sorcery with buyback for 3. Buyback says you may pay an additional 3 or an additional cost, in this case 3, to return it to your hand as you cast it. And then it says target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. I mean, I guess if you have like a feather deck, it's quite a bit of power you gain for
That's
1
true.
mana.
Yeah, in feather decks it's pretty good, but in any other deck it's not that great. In Commander at least.
Well, I guess if you have infinite mana, you can make any commander a Voltron commander.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it's not that great in Commander.
We've had worse weekly cards. We've also had better weekly cards.
It's true.
So,
yeah.
I guess let's move on to the adjournment.
So, last adjournments was kind of a downer, I'd say, 11% increases. But today, I would say, at least in my opinion, is a good adjournment. So, today we're going to be talking about the list for New Capenna. We did explain that we were going to be doing videos on the list changes, but I think...
Might be better to just have it as an adjournment.
Yeah, it should be a short video. But today is actually pretty interesting. This is actually the biggest list change they've ever had. So, we've talked about how before in our list video, I'll link it, in the top right corner, but that there's 300 rotating cards. They got rid of almost all of them, except for 68, I think. 62 being old ones, and there's 6 new ones, I think. I think there's 6 new ones. And the 6 new ones are the Stranger Things magic versions of the cards. So I'm not going to get into those, but they'll be on screen. They're just the magic versions of the Stranger Things Secret Lair. And then the other 62 cards are rares and mythics that were on the list. So there's no more commons and uncommons on the list. This is exciting because a lot of those cards are really expensive. Vampire Tutor, Sensei's Divining Top, Sakashima's Student, or whatever that one ninjutsu card is. There's so many good cards on the list right now that you could pull, and it's insane. So, yeah. Big list change this time.
You're a lot more excited to pull this card now because
Yeah.
you have a much higher chance of making your money, which is nice.
You see that list card, you're going to get excited. Plus, list cards are going to tank in price. They haven't yet. They haven't gone out at all yet, actually. But over time, they definitely will if they keep doing this. And I hope they keep it like this for the next few sets.
They did say that this is a temporary thing, or they're testing it out, so they can always change their mind if they want to. But I have a feeling after they see that stuff sells better, they'll be like, yeah, we like money.
Yeah, so one thing to note is that it definitely will, or my theory is that the next 3 sets will be back to normal. But the set after that will be back to 68 because I say that because
they work so far in the future.
They work far in the future. There's no way they'd be able to tell, and they can't just
Yeah, unless they were to have a few sets that were like this before.
That's true too. Yeah,
they could do that, but I'm betting they probably stayed on the side of caution.
Yeah. So right now, set booster boxes are fairly cheap. 113, 112. It's under MSRP. I would pick them up if you want to pick them up right now. I do think they will go up because of the list change. I don't think a lot of people have realized that the list has changed yet. I had to do some research on it. They haven't really done much commercializing for the new list changes. So if you're going to pick them up, I'd pick them up now. So yeah, that's about it. You have anything to add?
A little bit of a longer video today.
Yeah, but it's set overview. We'll do a commander overview in the future.
Talk about the legendary creatures of the set.
Yep. And then
there's quite a few, and they are kind of fun.
Yeah, we are planning on doing probably... I'm planning on recording a New Capenna set booster opening. And actually, that might be uploaded by the time this is uploaded, I'm not going to lie, because this will be weekly upload for next week. So that might be uploaded already, but... I don't know if we're going to do any other New Capenna content other than the legendary creatures. We may do a couple other things, but we don't know. We'll have time. Only time will tell. But that's about it.
Yeah.
So if you like the video, subscribe and press like. Share it with your friends and share it on the internet. We want to have people see us.
Leave a comment.
Leave a comment.
Do you like New Capenna?
Yeah, do you like New Capenna?
Anything we missed?
Loved it.
I liked a lot of the flavor.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if the cards are good or not. The flavor was good.
Yeah.
I have a legitimate business person.
I have my exotic pets. They're very exotic.
They're fish.
They also have...
Voltron fish.
They also have Aeon counters because I used my Ozolith to put them on my creatures.
Sounds reasonable.
Anyway, that's about it.
Bye.
Bye.